So I've been in the business for 25 plus years, and I think it's been a pretty consistent theme is, low cost is the winner in a lot of procurement practices. So cheapest cost makes the most sense. Let's move on with that service provider. So specific to out of scope and rigid contracts, we see it quite often, particularly in the truckload space or in the very, very time definite space. Clients will put business out for bid. They get really aggressive pricing. What happens is they book loads. Those loads don't get covered, and then they end up calling a company like us last minute. Well, when they call us last minute, they end up not only paying more than their bid rate, we're rescuing those loads, and now we're paying more, which in turn, the customer's paying even more. When in reality, if we had just gotten down to a real, more measurable, service-oriented solution where we know we can cover it every time, it's critical. It's a win-win for the customers.
One way of maybe looking at it is, what is your cost as a percentage of your profits, right? What budgetary items are you looking for to substantiate your expenses? What are your shareholders looking for brand kind of awareness? A lot of that goes into more of what I would say a newer, less conventional means to be more creative to procure, right? Are you getting more value for what you're buying for a service that's delivering to your stakeholders? And in most cases, I believe they are, right? The traditional means are, I got to get a cost and it needs to be cheaper than last year. But a lot of times that sullies the value of what you're trying to deliver to your clients.
I think we began to see clients look at market benchmarking, if you will, or market indices, or market trends and analysis. And again, that may seem on the surface to be somewhat cost-focused only, and it is in a way, but it also helps to put that cost issue maybe not aside, but in its compartment where it needs to be, so that then you can move on and work on other total cost issues or cost avoidance type projects or things like that. But if they can go to management, or they can go to their board and say, hey, we've validated this against a market trend or whatever, then fine, let's be fair, let's build some walls around that, or build some stair steps or some min and max and that sort of thing around that, and then move on. And then we can talk about, how do we serve the customer? How do we serve the client's customer in this day and time with, meeting their key KPIs?
A better way to focus on cost could be really a collaborative approach of understanding all sequence of events associated to that given transaction or that given service offering. So here at Pegasus, we don't even participate in RFPs unless we have collaborative dialogue with the customer. So if somebody sends us a bid and expects us to participate, we'll opt out if we can't have educated conversations with stakeholders that are involved in the decision-making process. And the reason for that is some of the old strategies around procurement is collaboration is weak. It's best not to show your cards, because if you do, you're giving up, you're giving spades out to the other side that could give them a competitive edge to win. We see it completely opposite. We want to understand what they're really trying to accomplish, and really want to deep dive into that scope of work to make sure what we bid or what we propose will actually be a binding solution for us and the client. We're not going to go out of scope. We're not going to choose not to participate, tell them, oops, just kidding, that doesn't fall into services. We want to be able to provide the superior client experience each and every time, and I think we've had a good track record doing that.
So part of that becomes, how can we collaborate to deliver something that's a little bit different, right? Is there a way that we can move it? Can we put you on like a routing guide? Can we institute something that's a little bit more conventional that still meets your service needs, but also hits your costs? And what we'll ask is, well, what's the cost of failure? When you ask that question, the connotation means, all right, well, if I tell them it's a really high consequence of failure, then that means that the cost is going to be higher. That doesn't necessarily mean that. Part of that means is, how much further up can we go in the planning cycle so that we can anticipate that need so we don't have to get to that point, right? Some of it may be, can we talk to your material planners? Can we talk to others, right? When I talk about collaborating, how further can we go upstream so that we can mitigate some of the expectations of what, oh my gosh, this is going to be expensive. It might be, but if we get further upstream, guess what? Maybe it's not. Maybe it's just, we need to talk to your planners. We need to talk to somebody else in your supply chain that can help us mitigate some of the areas that we need to know that may not conventionally been part of the communication process.
one of the things that we were beginning to see with some clients, particularly before the pandemic, was in many cases a coming together between operations and procurement. And by that, I don't just mean a defined set of RFP requirements or scope of work and communicated by email and passed over the wall to another organization. I'm actually beginning to see procurement and operations, if you will, together in the same room, and really being able to understand the nuances and what's going on. Then that makes it a lot easier for us or another supplier to come into the room to be able to work through the solution.
Well, a lot of times when I say collaborate, a lot of times I'm not even talking about us and the client, right? Sometimes I'm talking about it starts with the client's internal groups, right? Is the service side of your business, the business unit, the procurement side, the ops side, are they aligned to the same goals, right? Is procurement solely incentivized on cost savings? Are they incentivized on service? Would it change your opinion? So a lot of times we want to make sure that part of the collaboration starts with, are you all on the same page before we kind of talk, right? And then it makes for a really interesting dialogue when we can get on the same side of the table, because that's the biggest thing. We know we need to be competitive, right? That's kind of table stakes. We understand the market. But what we really look at is, what do we need to deliver in terms of a service?
We hear a lot about supply chain communication, transparency, visibility, and things like that. And I think the natural tendency is to look external, is to look inside to outside or outside to inside. And what we've seen and experienced is maybe some opportunities for our clients to look within their organization first. I think some of that has a tendency to help not only them in terms of scoping and building a fence, if you will, around what their requirements are and that sort of thing between procurement and operations, if you will. And then that results in a really cleaner product and a cleaner transmission externally to their partner, to us, to whoever it might be in that space. At the same time, when you're talking about internal communication, once a program has achieved its success or is in the process of execution, that internal communication that's established also works well for sharing internally best practices or best cost or best ideas. And what I mean by that is some of the clients that we have are large multi-division type clients. And let's say we have a tremendous collaborative success between a division and ourselves. If that client has that streamlined communication internally, then the other section of that company will know about that success and be able to share that from a procurement standpoint across the organization, and then be able to take advantage of that and actually achieve scalability on costs that was maybe occurred in a more narrow frame, and now it's really going wide, if you will, within the client organization and procurement organization with that client corporately. I think there has to be, in many cases, a cultural alignment. If that alignment occurs between the two organizations and we're clear in that regard, in other words, they want to do business with us and we want to do business with them, and we feel like there is compatibility, if you will, across the companies, then I think that's an opportunity for us to go forward with a potentially ideal client, as well as us with an ideal partner. And we look at that the same way with our partner network, and the business model that we have relies heavily on partner network and the need to have that confidence in performance and competence and capacity and consistency that we need in order to support our client base. And us having that and having that confidence, enables us to go forward and be able to build solutions for those clients that then we can bring to them in a collaborative environment, in more of an open, transparent type environment with that client to come up with the ideal solution.
Cultural alignment is a huge deal for us with organizations. And look, we run into it every day, big, giant organizations that want to be beholden to procurement. What we've found is when you tie purpose and cultural alignment into those equations, it lets people's guards down and they see the greater stakeholder picture, which allows us to, one, negotiate better with those customers, not negotiating for a win-lose scenario, but to negotiate together for the most optimal solution for all parties. We spend an enormous amount of time qualifying and identifying what we deem as the ideal client. And the way we get to that approach is really deeply understanding the value we bring to all the amazing clients we have today, And by doing that, we know that when we approach an opportunity, we are not putting ourselves in a bid-only procurement situation, because we can talk specifically to the value we bring within that industry, vertical, specific service offering that really helps us paint the better picture, so those procurement and operations leaders see some potential value and are more inclined to collaborate with Pegasus. And at the same time, we spend a lot of time, whether it's a client event or connecting other stakeholder or clients with each other to really help express that value as well. Builds immediate trust and gives us a little more credibility on the front end to really deep dive into that win-win scenario.
I think historically, things such as preferred supplier agreement or even sole source agreement had a little bit of a negative tinge on it within maybe both operations side as well as a procurement organization. You potentially had an operations team that looked at that and went, well, wait a minute, I know I can get something else. I saw it advertised during the Super Bowl, and why isn't my procurement organization doing that? And you see a procurement organization wondering, well, why can't I change suppliers? Why can't I do this? And I think you're seeing on both sides of the fence more of a partnership type of approach, more of a strategic sourcing type approach. And I believe people are realizing now, particularly in the past couple of years, that if there's shortages of parts, if there's shortages of raw material and that sort of thing, that's not going to be solved by flipping suppliers. That supplier is not going to find that part. What was the old phrase? Dance with the one that brung you. And I think people are sometimes coming back to that and from an old school standpoint and realizing, well, wait a minute, there's some validity in that. Because one thing that you have when you do have that strategic alliance with someone, the benefits that you have from a operations and a procurement standpoint are several. And that partner is likely going to be the first to come to you with the solution. That partner is going to be the first to have the idea of what the next big thing is. And a true partner is likely to come to you with the best idea to save money also. And I think when you have that relationship, it just brings so many more benefits to you in terms of options to be able to navigate through the difficult scenario that we've got now with shortages and the logistics challenges as well. Not just flipping partners every so often, but really working with the one that you've got, working with the trust and confidence you've got. And if you have that, you'll see that partner deliver solutions that bring results. I hate to say, but unfortunately, I think in the logistics space, you often are still seeing people more comfortable in an RFP type environment, in a win-lose type environment. And we're very fortunate with the client base we have and the forward-thinking clients that we have to be able to work with them collaboratively to come up with solutions that are leading edge and that benefit both companies.